grain harvest.
I see the cars.
There were 2 women cooking for 40 men in that tiny little kitchen.
Oh, that's the kitchen.
Every day was 12 pies and 14 loaves of bread.
Oh my goodness, how much food is that much?
They worked from 4:30 in the morning till 9 o'clock in the evening. That's okay, George. Oh. Walk on. Walk on.
Yeah.
Harvest cars.
Yeah.
That's what I slept in every summer.
Yeah. I slept on the floor in our guest house. Dining room floor.
Over here was the stallion barn. This was the world's largest, most famous and influential Percheron breeding ranch. Important that was 86% of the horses that worked in the big cities and on the farms were Percheron. Not Clydesdales, they made it to 2%. 86% were Percheron.
So what was it about Percheron that made it so you sold ranches and farms?
Because there was a little Frenchman named Napoleon who was trying to conquer the world.
Yep.
And he was an artilleryman, and he was trying his best to develop a super horse, a war horse that could pull a cannon, carry a rider, and travel vast distances very fast. So he would gather up horses of a certain type, and take them to La Perche and cross them with Arabian stallions he captured from the Arab sheiks, the Arab royalty. And the result was the Percheron. So when they started importing them into North America, they literally became known as the horse that powered America. 5,000 of these built the railroad, Canadian Pacific Railroad, through the Rocky Mountains. In time to save us from becoming American citizens, by the way. In the U.S., they were used extensively in the big cities. In Chicago, they passed a law that a Percheron or an immediate Percheron cross could pull a fire engine.
Yeah.
These rules have been all over the place. They are literally the only half-breed in the world that can run all day on pavement and cobblestone. The only breed that can run full out on pavement and cobblestone and never do it again is a Percheron. Their feet are up to 4 times stronger than any of the other draft breeds. What Napoleon did was amazing, you know that. You take the bone in the leg here, and you cut that bone off like this. Look at the end of that bone through a microscope. On a Clyde, a Shire, or a Belgian, that bone looks porous, which makes it brittle. On a Percheron, it looks like ivory, and the bone will literally bend before it'll break.
And he just kept breeding to that.
And actually, where I learned about the bone and the feet was from the head veterinarian for Walt Disney in Anaheim, California.
Yeah.
Had him on the wagon, sitting right where you're sitting, in fact.
Yeah.
Told me that.
Really?
Yeah. He also teaches at the veterinary college. And he said they use. He said we've never used a Percheron bone for demonstrations. He said they're too damn hard to break.
Yeah. How many Percherons at the biggest time at the Bayou raising Percherons? How many head were here?
Over 1,000.
Okay, I had it wrong.
750 mares. Okay. 450 which were directly imported from France. Elaine imported from France from 1904 until 1914. Well, it wouldn't have been in 14, it would have been 1913 because the war put an end to that.
Yeah.
But here's something else. This is amazing. Lane would take a herd of cattle over to Cayley,
Yeah.
which was the third largest stockyards in the world. The largest was in Argentina, the second largest was Chicago, Illinois, and the third was Cayley. And they would take the cattle over there. He would take along 50 to 60 head of grade Percherons like these that had 1 year's work on the fields with the grain and the hay harvest. They were added to with the cattle, railed to Montreal, put on steamships, taken live over to England, because no refrigeration.
Yeah.
When they arrived in England, the cattle were slaughtered and taken ashore as beef, but the horses were immediately unloaded and taken to England. Now here's what fascinates me. When the war broke out in 1914, the British Army did a census in the entire country of England to find out how many Percheron horses would be available. They discovered that 85% of the horses that pulled the buses and the trolleys in the city of London had the Bar U brand on the left front shoulder. And of course I'm sitting there watching the Olympics and that. Oh man, that
Going through your head.
me really wound up. And anyway, then when he was done with his business with the Englishmen, he would cross the channel, load up with French horses,
Bring
them back to the Bar U. But you see, the horses he was buying, he would only buy horses that had either already won a national title or were bred by national title holders. But even from that bloodline, he had a guy named Professor William Carlisle, who was the top show judge in the U.S. He was a professor. He taught draft horse bloodlines. He wrote 2 books on the subject, taught university courses. Lane sent him over there, and he told him, he said, what I want you to do, he said, is buy only horses that you believe have the possibility of becoming the next North American champion. Don't think anything less.
Yeah.
And he said, I know you're a Scotsman, so remember, it ain't your money you're spending. Carlisle took him at his word, and at the 1909 Seattle World's Fair, Lane showed his horses in 16 categories, and he came home with 17 gold medals. Now, this has never happened before. Horses. Okay?
Yeah.
That 17th medal was from President Taft. It was accompanied by a presidential citation which reads, to George Lane for having the finest selection of livestock ever gathered under one name.
Isn't that something?
That's amazing.
Yeah.
You know, think about it. Americans began coming up, well, the headlines exploded around the world, and Americans were coming up here paying over $10,000 for proven breeding sires out of that barn there.
Yeah.
That was like $100,000 or more back then.
Yeah. Yeah. For
Add to that,
breeding.
the British government, World War I, the horse of choice on the battlefield, Percheron.
Yeah.
Their life expectancy, 5 to 7 days. The 2 million die on the battlefields of Europe. The breed in France is completely wiped out. The French government came to George Lane through a gentleman named Louis Aveline, who told George Lane, he said, look, you bought all our best horses, taking the best care of the bloodline, we need them back.
Yeah.
So if you were